Welcome to another episode of Anewgo of New Home Sales. I'm John Lee. I'm the host here. We also have Sarah Williams, my co-host. Sarah is our director of sales, and I brought her on because today we're going to talk a lot about builder marketing. And she used to be a VP of marketing herself, and she's also worked in the sales realm. And she's also done a lot with our clients that are builders in content marketing. So really want to have her contribution. And of course, our guest here, Melissa Cervin. She's the VP of marketing for Lombardo Companies, which encompasses the Lombardo Homes brand in Michigan and Missouri. But before I get into this, Melissa, I just want to honor you with two distinctions here. One is you are our oldest customer. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that you've been with us since 2002. We were founded in 2001. And actually, across our over 3,000 clients that we've had over the years, you have been attributed with over the top 5 most sales in our company. So you've really been a long-time client and loyal client to us, and I really appreciate that. The second distinction is we may not even be here if it wasn't for you, and you probably don't know this, but when I co-founded the company back in 2001 with my partner, Jeff McSwain. He was an architect and he was doing architectural illustrations back then. And I always joke around, he was in the business of art and I came in from a financial background. I was always more in the art of the business. And so the two of us got together and it really took off. There was a big need for visualizations and architectural illustrations back then. And it was actually doubling in sales every month. And so we needed to bring in another partner in. So I said, hey, I have a good friend that's finishing his MBA up in Pittsburgh, and he's going to graduate in May. And this was back in November 2001. And so I said, hey, come join our company. It's going to be great. We're going to have so much business and everything. And then he came down there and it was just crickets. And this is our first year doing this business. I just thought, it's like this every month. I didn't realize that summertime is a kind of adult drums, everything kind of like, and he came on down here, bought a house, and basically I had to pay for him. And it was getting to a point here that we weren't sure we were going to make it. It was May and then June and then July, and it was like nothing. And back then we didn't have the internet, and basically had to go knock on builders' doors to try to even get us. So we're really locked into the local market. And basically, I remember we were sitting around in his bonus room with nothing to do. And I said, well, why don't we just get down and pray about this? And he said, actually, I've always wanted to go into seminary. So maybe instead of staying with this business, maybe I'll just go into seminary. I said, oh, maybe I'll just stay and try to get a second job so I can pay for both of us, because I hate that you came all the way down here. Well, we just started praying there. And it was funny. In the middle of the prayers, I get this phone call from 248 area code, which I knew was from Detroit or Michigan because I used to live up there. So, it was probably just an old friend. And then it was you, and you worked for Syntex Detroit back then. Mm-hmm. And then you, long story short, you put in an order for $7,000. And basically that order, changed the whole direction of this company. And I told Stephen, who's still with us today as my partner, I said, I have some good news and some bad news. And I said, the good news is we got a $7,000 order. We live another day. I said, the bad news is I don't think God wants you to go into seminary. So anyway, long story short, you're here with us today, and I'm so happy and honored that you're here. With that, you want to share a little bit about you and your company?
Sure. Like you mentioned, I am with Lombardo Homes now, or Lombardo Companies. We have a bunch of different brands underneath that. We've got Cranbrook Custom Homes, which is our luxury division, Lombardo Homes Michigan, and Lombardo Homes St. Louis, which are kind of called our custom luxury homes. Although in Michigan, we're a little more production. We're just kind of delving into that custom world. In St. Louis, we are 100% custom. We build on your lot. And then Lombardo Companies also has an apartment division. Division. So we do apartments as well. So that's what I've been doing for the last 11 years. But I've been in home building essentially my entire career. I was supposed to be an elementary school teacher. That's what I was going to college for. And I did a couple of temp jobs in college and got placed at a local home builder here, Robertson Brothers. And my temp job turned into a 4-year job starting when I was 17 years old. And I've tried explaining it to people, and even my team members that work for me here, when they first come on board, You don't expect it. I didn't expect it. Home building either gets into your blood or it doesn't. I've literally only done residential home building my entire career. I can't imagine doing anything else. Marketing is very universal. I recognize that I could probably go into any other industry and do what I do because a lot of the rules and practices are the same. I just can't imagine selling or marketing anything else. Like I really, really love what I do. I'm very passionate about it. And it changes all of the time. And it's just funny because I've worked for, it's been 4 home builders over the last 20 plus years, because I am old now. And there's little nuances to all of them, things that are different. None of them, are bad. And I've kind of learned from all of them, but I love what I do because it's always different. It's always changing. And that's just in the day to day. I mean, what I do every single day is different every single day. But then when we have conversations like this and you actually look over the span of 20 years and look at how home building is changed over 20 years, it's very, very interesting, this job specifically, and how it is constantly changing and evolving.
Yeah, you and me have this commonality of having this passion for this industry, and we've both been in here for a couple of decades. I've seen a lot of people come and go, and for you to really hang in there and going down memory lane a little bit, you've been here long enough that I think you can share, maybe some of your experiences over some of the ups and downs of this industry. There was the mild recession following 2001, then there was the Great Recession, and now there's another change in the marketplace now. Any comparisons or lessons to be learned from all those ups and downs?
It's been really interesting as the market has started changing now. My thoughts and perspective, on it. 2001, I was really, really new at this. I was really, really new at the marketing end of it. So I have to say that one, it's not even a blip on my radar. 2008, we all knew it was coming. And for me, it was pretty dramatic. I worked for a national home builder at the time. Centex was here in Michigan. That was really my big foundation, home building. I loved working for a national builder. To this day, I appreciate the background that I have, the processes and procedures, the training. It really, really was a great foundation for me, and great group of people. I mean, realistically, the people that I worked with at Centex, at that national company, Centex Detroit, they're the same people I work with now, just at a more local level. But I'm essentially working with all the same people. But it was interesting because you knew it was coming. You could I would say that you knew it was coming, but I certainly didn't know how to prepare for it from a marketing standpoint. I had never been through it before. Everything leading up to it had been really, really good, and marketing was kind of easy. It was definitely fun, and I didn't know what to do or how to prepare for it. And then it was kind of like overnight, everything just stopped. And that, I think, is the biggest difference between what we went through in 2008, 2010, and what is happening now. Is I remember distinctly, it was just kind of like all of a sudden, no one was walking in the door. There weren't lists of people, and there weren't lists of people looking to buy things for a very long time after that. It felt like, so grand opening things was tedious and scary because I just wanted someone to show up. Like if I got 10 people, that would be fantastic, but I just wanted someone to walk through the door when we opened something. I wanted to sell a home. And with that, not only did we lose kind of our buyers, but we lost a lot of the people in backlog. I mean, we all of a sudden were getting homes back. And so not only did we have to sell all of the available home sites, but we had a bunch of inventory that we were stuck with that we had to sell. And for me, that's when Centex actually decided to exit the market as well. So it was pretty traumatic. I mean, the landscape of home building in Michigan changed pretty dramatically. Where here, we've been talking for the last, 2.5, 3 years, like it's going to change, it's going to slow down, but it didn't. And every time we thought it was going to slow down, it actually kept getting a little bit crazier. I mean, I feel very, blessed at this point. I feel like I have lived through the lowest of low in home building, and I've just lived through the highest of highs too. Like what we just went through in the past 2 or 3 years is unlike anything I've ever been through, where I actually had lists of hundreds of people waiting to buy homes, and we had to control sales and we had to control lot releases. So that was very different. And now we're starting to slow down. The good thing is I feel prepared for this. I've done this before, so I know what to do. So it's not as scary to me going into it this time. I am very aware of all the work that's ahead of me. I've gotten a little comfortable in doing and focusing on the fun stuff and not, sort of the day-to-day of getting traffic through the door and all that, because the traffic was just there. So it's kind of, knowing that I've got all these things that I have to do again to get back to that. But it's been a little bit different too, because the demand is still there. So yes, it's been a little bit quieter. The traffic, the lines aren't quite as long, but there are still people walking through the door. The people who are walking through the door I keep comparing it to December. If you have someone coming into your sales office in December, they're buying. So the traffic that we're getting now, they're interested, they're buying. If you work with them, you're going to get the sale out of it. It's good qualified traffic. So the traffic is still there. It's just not the lines aren't as long, and we haven't lost all the buyers. We're not, people are not walking away from their homes. They're not in that position where they can't afford them anymore. Like that part of this change is very different than what it was in 2008.
That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear your optimism, but I think a lot of that is built upon your experience, and you've been there, you know how to overcome it. I think you have a pretty good team from what I can tell. Some of the things also with your varied experiences is that, you work with, like you said, a large national builder like Syntex, who was later acquired by Pulte. You've also worked for, small, family or local builders like Robertson and Pinnacle, but now you're also working for a multi-state regional builder. Can you kind of share some of the differences of your marketing efforts related to that? And you also, by the way, you also build communities and on your lot. So you do everything.
We do everything. That's actually, one of our sort of marketing spiels, if you will, for Lombardo specifically, is that we literally have something for anyone who's looking for a home, whether it's, like I said, apartments, your first time home buyer, first time move up, or getting into the luxury buying. So realistically, if someone walks into our sales office, even if they can't afford or at the home that they're looking at in that sales office, we can usually find somewhere to put them. And it's the same company, so they're getting that same quality regardless of where they end up. But that being said, no, I've had the luxury of working for a couple of family-owned businesses. Robertson Brothers and Lombardo are both family-owned. I worked with Pinnacle for a number of years, and that was actually a company. It was a development company that was started. I believe they were originally selling land to KB Homes was going to come into the market, but it was right as the 2008 crash happened. So they got stuck with all this land, and they were like, well, so they just started a home building company. So I was with them for a few years. And then I think it was with Syntex for roughly 8 years. And it was interesting. One of the, my favorite comparisons to all of them, like I said, I loved working for a national. I just got such a great foundation, a lot of really good experience. I had so many resources. A lot of the people that were in my world then are still people that I'm in contact with today. I consider my mentors in this industry. So that was great. But there you had all the layers. So you had your own division, but then you could draw on the experiences of other divisions within, the company and across the country. So if you were kind of stagnant or at a loss for ideas, you could reach out to California or New Mexico and just kind of, hey, what are you guys doing? And it wasn't really competition, and they were happy to talk to you and help you along. And you also had those different levels of management. So, when I didn't have the resources right there in my division, I could reach out to my regional marketing manager and say, hey, can you help me with this? Or what are your thoughts? Or can I run something by you? So it was really great in that regard. I really did love having the national home building experience, and I'm glad I got to experience it for as long as I did. The thing that I really, really love about working for a smaller home builder and a family-owned home builder is sort of the creative freedom, which took me a long time to get used to. I am sort of a type A personality. I know my job is very creative in nature, but I like my boxes and I like things to fit in boxes, and being comfortable being, thinking outside of the box, it can be a little uncomfortable for me actually. But it was interesting when I first came here and had my first handful of conversations with Anthony Lombardo. And just to give you a little backstory, I find this kind of funny, but Anthony Lombardo was my competition when I was at Syntex. So it's not like he was new to me. He was my competition. And he was he was a small home builder. He wasn't regional at the time. And he was an East Side home builder where Syntex was kind of more all over the Southeast Michigan footprint. So he was kind of a thorn in my side is what Anthony was.
Well, you're
Because
probably a thorn in his side, so that's why he had to bring you over.
he would show up in my door and be like, well, Anthony Lombardo is doing this. And he would do these off the wall things. Like, he was the first person before this was a thing to do, which it is now. He would work his way around the sign ordinances by getting a tractor, getting a semi trailer and parking it in the field and putting a banner on it, which, again, you see that frequently now. This was unheard of 20 years ago. Like, no one did that. And at Centex, I couldn't do that. Like, it's just something the company, I couldn't do it. Budget wise, I couldn't do it. And it just didn't fall within the rules, right? So I'd have my DP show up and be like, why we can't get any signage, but there's Anthony Lombardo and he's got a whole semi trailer advertising his new site. And I was like, darn that, Anthony, like, seriously. So that was my background with them before I came on board. But then when I got here, it was a lot of prodding, like, Melissa, you're not stuck in this box. We don't have to play by the rules. Like, let's break the rules. Let's do things that are different. So it's really nice to have that freedom and flexibility to kind of go in and present ideas and do things that are way out of the ordinary. That, yes, certainly in that national atmosphere, it would be like, what are you thinking? No way. Like, that we can't even consider that. Where here, it's kind of, like, the crazier, the better. I mean, because that's what gets people's attention, right? I mean, we all know it sitting here having this conversation. There are certain phrases, why rent when you can own? And, like, there's just things that every builder has done. There are certain, option packages or incentives or different things that we have all done because it's just tried and true. But the customer actually expects it. You know what I mean? They're used to those things. So we want to do the things that are different where the customers go, wait a second, what? Because we want to get their attention. So it still sometimes takes me a while to go, well, gosh, maybe we should do this. Oh, it's kind of crazy. Like, no, go have the conversation. But that's one of the things that I've liked the most is just there aren't the same set of rules. Here at Lombardo specifically, it's been a really good mix because Lombardo Homes did buy the Centex assets when Centex left the state. So they bought the remaining home sites, they bought the homes that were under construction and finished them, and they brought over a lot of the personnel. So a good portion of our current company today is the same, or are the same people that I worked with at Lombardo Homes. So Anthony bought, home sites, he bought homes under construction and closed them, he bought people, and he essentially bought those national processes and procedures and brought them over. So right now I have this really, really interesting mix of family-owned business with the freedom and flexibility to do things out of the ordinary. I have, a direct line right to, Anthony and the siblings, as well as my division president. So, I mean, getting them on the phone or talking to them every single day is a part of my normal day. They're here, they're active. So it's in that regard, it's very family owned because I have that access and they care, and it's just great to be part of the family, if you will. But then we also have that background of the national company because we have their process and procedures, and because so many of us work together in that environment before coming here. So.
Do you feel like, did the nationals come back after the market changed? Like, what did that look like? Because nationals left, I'm sure, when the market went down. So did they all show back up when everything got good again? No. Okay, good. Yeah.
Interesting. The only real national we had here. So Pulte has always been here because until just, several years ago, this was home base for Pulte. Before they moved their operations to Georgia, we were home base for Pulte. Bill Pulte's from here. That's where he created the business. So Pulte Homes has always been here. But even in that 2008 timeframe, Pulte got very, very small after that, So they never left. They did move their actual operations to Georgia, their corporate headquarters to Georgia, but they kept their division here, and it's still here today. So they've never left. But Centex was the only other national that was here. They left, and then obviously it was probably a year or two after that, Centex left Michigan, that Pulte acquired Centex, and they became one and the same. So we actually don't have any other nationals here other than Pulte, and no one has, to date, has ventured back. We do have another regional that entered the market. So MI Homes is here. They bought out Pinnacle Homes. So they've been here for probably 2 years now. But other than that, it's a lot of smaller home builders, Lombardo Homes, MI, and then just, the family owned home builders that are here. So we've never really seen the nationals come back.
Interesting side note, my first brand new home that I built was actually with Pulte. It was in Rochester, Michigan, right when you were in college in Oakland University, just a few miles down the road. So we've been kind of connected even before we got into this industry. But as we've worked with you over time in your different companies, I have seen how things have changed. When you're with Syntex Detroit, we could count on a regular order. It's very standardized, renderings, and everything had to follow a certain process. Then you went quiet with Pinnacle, and now I understand because it was the recession and they're more of a land development thing. And then when you came back with Lombardo, you had all this creativity. You were starting to do things out of the box, and you're one of our early adopters of our technology and our apps, which allow the buyers to interactively design online. So I can see a whole different style and risk taking and creativity that you're doing. But then at the same time, talking to you, your home base is in Michigan, and you have that Michigan division, which I guess you forced or encouraged early adoption technology. But then you had your other division in Missouri, St. Louis, and they were resistant to this. How has that changed, or has it changed? And how did you make it change if it did?
So interestingly enough, the technology I have always been a huge proponent of. I mean, my job is to keep the pulse of the customer, right? Like, I just understand what they're looking for and what they want. And you could see it coming. My biggest frustration is actually, I felt like we took too long. And that's one of the things. Home building can be very traditional. It really can be. And marketing especially is, I made the joke recently that, people think that I play with colored pencils, and that's, I'm the girl who colors. That's what I do for a living. And about that, but just a couple of weeks ago, someone outside my door yelled to Annie, who works with me, "Hey, Annie, do you have any colored pencils?" And it just made me chuckle. And she's like, "Why would I have colored pencils?" Well, because you're in marketing. So that's, people think we do.
They still think we do watercolors here. And I used to paint watercolors for Syntex Detroit because you like watercolors, 18 years ago. I actually had to go take a watercolor class in Kansas for 2 weeks so I can paint Syntex homes.
That is so funny. Good Lord, the watercolor. You look back at when you used to tight roll your pants, and that's my watercolor phase.
Yes,
now.
I remember. He's like, "Well, we need to do the same watercolor for his next house, but we need it in different colors." I said, "Well, I can't go and repaint that."
Well, do you know what's funny? Do you know why we liked the watercolors? I don't know if we ever had this conversation.
Huh?
Because do you know why we liked the watercolor?
Why did you like watercolors?
Because they were so obscure that they gave a representation of the house, but the customer could not come back and say, that light is not the light I got on my house. Or that brick belt is, because there wasn't really a brick belt in a watercolor. There wasn't really. So
right.
It was detailed enough that you kind of knew where your brick was going to be and where your siding was going to be, but it wasn't detailed enough that the customer could come back and actually argue, details. So,
and it was better than a black and white pen and ink. So it gave a little bit of life to it, but it wasn't exactly what you're going to get. But now you went to the full other extreme. You have specific color schemes and bricks, and it is exactly what they're going to get. And you've done this even for your interior kitchen. So it's kind of funny over the last 20 years how you've gone from suggestive to this is your dream home.
But that's also how the buyer has changed, right? Like it's funny, even from a marketing standpoint, it used to be back in the day, give them just enough information to make them call, but we want to make sure they either call or they walk in the sales office, because when we get them in person, that is when, we can sell to them. We just need the person to come in and give us that opportunity. So give them just enough information that they need to reach out to us to get more. And then, then we can sell to them. That's what the salespeople do. Now, literally the buyer will not stand for that. The buyer wants all of the information. And if we as a builder want to play that game where we're not going to give you all the information so that you have to call us, they're not going to call us. They're just going to eliminate us from their search, and they're going to go to the next builder who does provide all of that information. So gone are the days of being able to sort of be cheeky and obscure and no, we're going to tease you and draw you in so we can sell to you. Gotcha. It's now, we need to give you everything that we've got in our sales teams, and even myself and my marketing team have had to, sort of realize that our value, we have different values to the customer at this point. So, the customer doesn't necessarily need us for the information. They expect the information to be out there and the detail. And they want that detail. They expect it to be out there. Our value comes into play in other ways. So yeah, I mean, the technology has, it's changed in our lives altogether, and we'd be crazy to think that that technology wouldn't seep into the builder world. And I think, as builders, and I can't speak for every builder, but I certainly know for the ones I have worked for, we were really resistant as a whole. I had so many conversations where marketing was just going in with her newest toy. Like, it was the bright, shiny object that cost a lot of money, but we didn't really need it to sell homes. It was just fun. And that was sort of the battle that I fought for a really long time. But you could see it happening. I mean, the auto industry was kind of the first to do it. And especially here in Michigan, that drives so much, like that auto industry drives so much of our business. What we do, if the auto industry is doing well, we're doing well. The auto employee is our buyer, whether it's, whether they're working on the lines or they're the engineers or what have you, they're the people buying our homes. So we're very closely intertwined up here. And when the auto dealers especially went to these build your car online, see exactly what you're going to get, and then you can't do that for a house. I mean, and to this day, we have a lot out there, but our customers still cannot build their exact home. And they are frustrated by that. And I'm frustrated for them too, because I understand why that expectation exists. I mean, we do surveys of all of our customers multiple times throughout the process. And that is probably the number one most consistent piece of feedback that I get that affects me in the marketing world is, why can't I see my house? So I feel like we've done a really great job, because our customers now can go in and pick all of their options through the interactive tool. They can see their exterior, which has been a godsend, because in the design studio, you're still picking a whole house off of a brick sample that's that big and a siding sample that's that big.
Right.
And so we have this tool where they can actually now see their colors on their home for the exterior
Remotely.
color choices.
They don't have to even come in. They can do it remotely.
Exactly. And it's funny because, I mean, yes, our customers get to use it from the comfort of their own home, but we use it as a tool in the design center too. I mean, that is absolutely what they do. They can see, feel, touch the actual samples, but they still build it out in the tool. So the customer's seeing it, print it off, have the customer sign it. So it's a tool for us and for the customer. But we also we went ahead and put kitchens in. I was being cost conscious. I couldn't build out every single floor plan, every single room. So I threw kitchens in because it kind of covers a lot of the main interior selection. So customers can do their paint, cabinets, countertops, flooring, backsplashes, tile, and then see what it looks like in the home and get a feel for their interior colors too. So I feel like we've come light years ahead in what we offer the customer, even going back 3 or 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But the number one biggest piece of feedback for my team is still, why can't we see our house? And it's not even like it's a friendly suggestion. It is a frustration that they cannot see their Barclay B with their colors, bathroom, primary bathroom, hallway bathroom, the kids' room, like they want to see in detail. And I have not been able to build that out yet.
You're meeting them as close as you possibly can within your marketing budget, within your budget. But I do think this becomes part of the sales budget, the design budget, like all the departments. And I think marketing gets kind of, it always comes out of marketing, right?
Yes.
Take it out of marketing, but this impacts like all the people in the whole entire company. So I think that's going to take a while to get all of our builders to kind of start seeing that. But that this is saving time in every department, it's not just a marketing tool.
Well, it's helping with expectation setting, which we really struggle with. And actually, this is where I will say that I think COVID was a blessing. So John, you had mentioned that we adopted the interactive stuff as soon when I got my DP's ear, he was good. He was like, yep, let's do it.
Right. I remember it's like,
yeah, he was good. Let's
but then Missouri, your other division was kind of like, whoa, wait a minute, we don't need this. Not down here.
The Missouri division has been around for 11 years now. So in Michigan, we've been here for 60 some years, but in Missouri, it's 11 years. And I mentioned to you recently, John, I actually found an email going back 11 years ago. I was helping our division president down there as a friend before I worked here, get the division up and going. And I found some emails that we had traded back and forth 11 years ago. And I actually pitched what at the time the version of the interactive tool, it was different then, but
yeah, it was very basic.
But I pitched it 11 years ago to my DP in St. Louis, and And we're just, I mean, we've just gotten to the point in the last year where we've fully adopted the interactive tool in St. Louis. And the difference I think COVID is actually the reason that we were able to
accelerated everything.
It did. It just showed that need for. We were very hesitant in the St. Louis market because we are 100% custom, and our team had this feeling that if we put this tool out there that has preset options in it and preset colors, and all they can do is go in and pick all their options and pick all their colors, is the customer going to understand that we're custom? That, you know, even though this is the house, we will still change this and this and this. Right. Because they can't change those things in the tool. So I really, you know, we went back and forth for years trying to.
I remember.
You know,
and now they have it in like every community in the St. Louis area, which is blows me away.
And it was literally because COVID came about, and it you know, really was helpful. This tool really helped us. I mean, we had to suddenly go over to DocuSign. We were doing Zoom meetings, which are very comfortable now, but they weren't then. The interactive tool, we already had it in Michigan, so it didn't impact our business much. We could do a Zoom, we could have them jump on the website, they could pick all their stuff, they could then jump on another Zoom, talk about it. I mean, we were actually converting to contract in Michigan without ever meeting a customer. And the interactive tool allowed us to do that. We didn't have it in St. Louis. So, you know, that need for being able to meet with people and provide information and still move a sale forward, despite not being able to meet in person, you know, really sort of helped facilitate, okay, there is a need for this, and it is helpful to the customer. So, you know, in that regard, that's one of the positives that came out of COVID in my world.
And I believe that, you know, technology can change a lot of things, but I think it also, you need to change your mindset and your skill set with the evolution of MarTech and even going towards sales tech and maybe buying online. Does that affect the skills that you're looking for in your hires, or even what you would expect as a, say, today's VP of marketing? What kind of skills would you need to adapt to today's marketplace?
It does and it doesn't. And I find this a hard question to answer just because it's so innate. It's kind of what I've been doing and what I've had to adapt to. So I've never actually.
It's natural to you. I mean, you've evolved with it.
I've never actually thought about, like, how do I hire differently? And in some ways, I don't necessarily know that I hire differently. Again, I have a team who, you know, all three of the people who work directly for me are kind of straight out of college. So that technology angle they've grown up with it. So it's
natural to them.
They don't know any different. So, you know, the Google and there are times, and I hate this, but there are times where I have conversations now and I'll get like just a blank look. And I'm like, because this is all they know. So in that regard, I can't say that I've hired differently or I've actually really thought about the skill set. And in some ways, you know, the one thing about marketing specifically is, you know, there is this technology aspect to it. The customer expects it. The people who work with me and for me are, you know, sort of in that place where they expect it. It's just part of our life now, right? Like that technology thing is just part of our life. But I still have to lay out ads. I still have to do signs and flags. I mean, there is still this normal traditional component of marketing that has not gone away. And I still need people who have the skills and ability to do that, because I feel like the talent that I see, the technology part of it, is actually just a part of their world, and it's what they expect and it's what they're excited about. And they can bring that to me, maybe even more than what I have, because I was not born into it. But having people that can do that technology and understand and bring that angle to the table, and still also understand that I need a graphic artist and I need someone who understands. Like, I mean, we literally still have to go out to a site and, you know, walk a sales trailer, walk a sales office, and strategize what's going where and where are people walking in and how are they walking out. Like that's actually the part that I find it a little bit harder to find people who know and understand that skill set, or that's the part that I find myself teaching more than the tech end. Does that make sense?
You know, I think I get it. You know, I mean, you need a broad skill set. Some of it's going to be innate, some of it's going to be natural, but it seems like one intangible piece is the ability to evolve and change and be open to, you know, a proliferation of different channels. It's not just websites anymore. It's, you know, social media, you know, and even marketplaces, and being able to move with the market wherever the market goes and wherever the consumers go. I think that's going to be one of those intangible skills.
Yes. Keeping up with how it's changing too is, you know, I told you I love my job. It's exhausting. When I actually think back to what my job was 15 years ago or 20 years ago when I was just sort
It's
of
very
starting out.
specific, and I know every month she's going to call me with this, and then I'm going to deliver that, and then
Yep.
we repeat rents. Now it's like, I don't know what you're going to ask for. Next month it could be about the kitchen. Next month it's about a cell center. It's like,
Well, yeah, even, from a
virtual
budgeting
tour.
standpoint, back in the day, you did prints. If you had a big budget, you might do
Right.
radio, and it sounds so old to say, but there wasn't any of this internet nonsense. I
Right.
remember when the internet started becoming like a player in our world. I remember handling like the SEO and PPC on my own. That is one thing I absolutely hire out. I have an agency that I work with for that. But I hired that, or I did all of that myself because it was kind of like, it was this thing. It was kind of like a fad.
It was a little side thing. Yeah.
It was small enough that I could manage it, and I read enough to be dangerous, and I had it. I just kind of added it into my whatever, but I had it because I kind of thought it was just gonna, like, I knew I needed to be there, but I kind of thought it was gonna come and go. I mean, way back then, because it just it just wasn't part of our world. If you would have told 15 year olds ago, or 15 year ago me, how much social media is going to play into my world, and SEO and PPC, and place the first page. Oh my gosh, I have dreams and nightmares about the term first page. Like, where are we in the first page? Like search terms.
Right.
I had no capability of understanding 15 years ago what that would be today. And by the way, when I say it's exhausting, I don't hire out our social media. I have an amazing team of people who work with me and support me in-house, and I have to give them all the credit in the world for our social media. And I am grateful to them because, oh my gosh, coming up with something relevant to say all day, every day, multiple times a day, for all of the different brands we have, because everything's a little bit similar, but just a little bit different, is exhausting.
You do a good job of it. I follow you on, Facebook, and I see how, the content is good quality, but it also has a purpose. Either it's building your brand or taking to a community, or, some action.
Trying to set expectations.
Right.
I mean, there's all sorts of different things that we're trying to do. But it's interesting because social media has even brought in another facet of interacting with the customer, which there's parts of it that I absolutely love. But again, it's a lot because we do it all in house. We don't farm it out. The customer can actually reach out and ask questions. Where is this? What is that paint color? Where did you get that furniture? Or they can let us know that we had vendors speeding on the road that morning, and can we take care of it? Or it's definitely another outlet where people have concerns or frustrations. They reach out on social media. So it's kind of, it's
a double-edged sword. I mean, it attracts an audience, but it also can attract all your criticism, all your naysayers, competition.
But even with, and that's probably my biggest frustration with social media is dealing with sort of those, sort of negative reviews.
Right.
Or people are, we've all had this conversation. People are very comfortable behind a computer screen and a keyboard. So sometimes the conversations are a little more colorful and forceful than maybe they would be if someone picked up the phone or had a conversation in person. So being the person on the other end of that and having to respond can be challenging. But with that too, it's been interesting. One of my favorite things to encounter is I will get a person who will contact us via social media at like 11:30 at night, and they will just this and that, and I'm frustrated, and no one's paying any attention to me, and yada yada yada. And I can't say I do it all the time. I don't always see it, but I'm on my phone. I feel like 24/7. So I can't tell you how many times I get something at 11:30 where someone's frustrated, and I respond back at 11:37 saying, hey, I'm sorry for your frustration. Give me a chance to look into this. I'll reach out tomorrow during normal business hours. The tone changes immediately because they got a real person.
Right. They got and from a very high level. A lot of times it would be like an OSC or a salesperson maybe that responds, but you're actually responding. That's pretty impressive.
I do. And you're getting it at 11:37. They are 100% not expecting response. They're upset. They're frustrated. They're really just going out there to vent. Sometimes they're just kind of hoping that the other neighbors jump on and like, oh yeah.
Right.
Instead, I'm out there saying, hey, like, I hear you. I'm sorry for your frustration. Let me look into this and we'll follow up with you. And even for the people that it's not late at night when it's just, hey, here's this. I like being able to reach out and respond to them. And I like that our customers who are watching our social media can see that we're responsive. So yes, this customer is very frustrated. Yep, we might have even messed up. We do. We screw up sometimes. That is playing out on social media for everyone to see. Because trust me, it's really easy for me to hide all that, right? Like I can just not allow comments. I can hide it. That's a lot easier in my world. But I think it's very real, and it paints a good picture for a customer when they see, listen, there's a problem, but they're responding. Like
Right.
they didn't just walk away. They didn't like, and that's again.
Well, you're actually highlighting one of the next levels of marketing. Traditionally marketing has been, I would say, one directional. It's like presentation marketing. We throw this out here. We hope that you come and visit or, contact us. But now there's you've seen an evolution with social media. There's social influencers in there, and those are some maybe third-party people that are kind of guiding the thing. But then there's this next level that's evolving now, which some people are calling it conversational marketing or conversational commerce, where it's not just you speaking to the audience is speaking back to you, and the audience is listening how you're going to respond back to them. And so that marketing is a little bit element of PR in there. So I just think the marketing people can't just hide behind the printer anymore. They're actually out front on the podium.
Right.
Well, it's the worst when you do see someone, you can tell, I guess, and that was going to be my next question, like for you, but you can tell if there's an agency manning that booth,
Right.
or if it's the builder, and we'll just,
And you're owning it,
builders
yes.
today, but you're owning it and taking it. And I love your approach, because you can see, you're like, when an agency's manning social media, it's really obvious to me, and I don't even work there, but I'm sure to all consumers.
They want a practical response and they want a heartfelt response. A third party is not going to give you that
Well,
necessarily.
Here's the thing. I actually don't think the customers, I'm going to be very simplistic, bear with me. The customers don't actually want a response. I mean, they
Right.
do, but what they want to be heard.
They want to be heard. Yes. I mean, the response could be just hearing, just tell me we're problem.
They just want to know that someone
Right. Somebody's listening
in the company heard them. So
Right.
when it is an agency or, a third party or whatever, it's just not the same. It's not the same as, they're not being heard, right? Like an agency got the message and they're going to relay the message like that. There's no satisfaction in that. Like, but when they know that they actually reach someone, and by the way, I don't think it has to be me. If it is, Annie or Serene and my team, or if it were, Chelsea in accounting, but knowing that you got to someone within the company and they were heard. So that's what matters. And the response, they do need a response. So I'm not saying that that's not important, but the important part of that exchange is that they're being heard. But no, I agree. It's funny, Sarah, I actually, for our OSC, before we had committed, to the OSC position and having, doing like a peer chat where you can actually interact, and have live conversation one-on-one on our website with the OSC, we had hired a third party because it seemed like a great idea. And that way it could be 24/7, which we can't do with our own people. And it was a third party company, and we did the typical like provided scripts, and I got copies of every single interaction. And I got to the point where I'd open my email, it was almost like
cringe.
It was so cringeworthy. And that was finally the conversation we had. Is it really better to have someone responding 24/7, but the responses, I mean, literally we got people all the time, are you a robot? Are you even human? Because and they were human, but the responses were so uncomfortable and so not a response to the very natural consumer question asked. It just didn't make sense. That is it really better to have someone available 24/7 just to have them available 24/7, or is it better to have real people with real answers available at set times, and then take a message when they're not available?
Yeah, or say, we've received your message, someone will be back with you.
Exactly.
We're offline, or even if you had an offline,
Yep.
like your live chat's not typically on because there's not someone there to sit there. I mean, that was my experience with live chat. Is like when I was in OSC, I was on the phone all the time, so I couldn't. If someone showed up, I wasn't able to pivot because I was on the phone. So
Right.
now this person's just sitting there. So if you even have, we're offline, leave a message, then you can jump in when everybody can talk, or leave your name
Exactly.
and number. So it's all about getting back to the best customer experience, and just,
Exactly.
I love a fast response. I mean, I preach it, I've taught it, I've,
Mhm.
for all the years, but it's got to be a quality fast response.
Exactly. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. That was that was a hard lesson learned. I was so excited just to be able to have something available. I felt it was important. We didn't necessarily have that OSC role filled. So it's like, let's do this. And thankfully in that time, we also did adopt OSCs in both divisions, and we were able to say like, listen, we really don't need someone at 3 in the morning. Yes, we have random people who aren't sleeping at night and are inquiring about new homes, but it's few and far between. Let's shut this down. And we do exactly what you said. I mean, it's now, that system where they're, when they're online, they can click it and have those conversations, but otherwise they're offline, and it's leave a message, we'll get back to you, and they get back to them as quickly as possible. But it's a real person who really knows about all of our communities and can give those good quality answers. So
I love it.
I love doing all that. And it's funny, my biggest fear and concern though is as the tech and social media and everything keeps growing. I mean, there's more and more and more platforms, and I have a team of there's 4 of us total right now across the 2 divisions. But across those 2 divisions, we're doing 1,000 homes, and I have 5 brands that fall within that. So our content isn't the same. So every time someone's like, hey, we should be on whatever, fill in the blank, Pinterest, Twitter, because we're not on everything. We're on the ones that right now are the most relevant to our business and our demographic. I get a little panicky because as much as I love it, it's also, I'm also getting to that point where like, how much can we do ourselves? And I don't know if it's a control thing. I don't know if it's because of, the customer experience. I know it's just better, but like, I want to manage it. I don't want to outsource it, but there's that part of me too. It's like, how many more things can we put in the funnel before we can't manage all of it?
And there's so many things in the funnel now, like the funnel. I mean, I started 19 years ago, in the industry, and what it looked like all of the things, top of funnel, where you have to show up wherever, John and I talk about this all the time. You have to be where the customer is, right? Melissa, this is what you're saying. The customers, depending on the demographic, are in different places. So, and you said it earlier, you sell to everybody. So you literally are on, I mean, I don't know if you're on TikTok, but like there's, Instagram, there's like a whole group of people that I'm always on Instagram. Old people are on Facebook. I mean, I'm, I guess, old now, but old people are on Facebook. It's certain demographics are on Instagram. The younger people are on TikTok.
What I'm talking about.
Is just like, you feel buried alive and you're like, I can't breathe. But at the same time, it's just the way, like, I feel like there'll be less of some of the other stuff that we all did as marketers. That's going to lessen, and there's going to be things. But then I think you look for tools that you can automate messages across some of these channels. Then you can argue it should be curated to the platform, your social media. That's when you can keep going and making it like the perfect science. But marketing it's a little bit of this, a little bit. It's like seasoning the stew, it's a little bit of everything that gets someone to your door. And it sounds like you guys are doing a fantastic job. And unfortunately, I wish I could tell you, and John could tell you, I think it's just going to continue. What we talked to you about, and we're at the forefront. So you're like, the tech part is not going to change, and more things are going to keep coming at you on the tech side of things. Unfortunately,
but with that, from a marketing standpoint, it both excites me and scares me a little.
Yeah.
But I think it's so necessary. And like I was kind of saying, I still feel like we need to work a little bit with all of our, with the company overall. Like when you were saying, hey, it's a marketing thing, and it's not necessarily like, I usually have to, I have an incredible team here, and they're really, really good at supporting me. But that doesn't mean that there aren't a handful of people that I'm kind of dragging, kicking and screaming into this world of tech, and why it's a good thing. But the fact of the matter is, the customer is not changing. I mean, we've got people right now buying an Apple 14 instead of the iPhone 14 instead of the iPhone 13, just because it's the iPhone 14 and there's like 3 different things on it. They're a little bit faster, bigger, smarter, whatever. Like the customer expects that. Even, you and I, we can all look back and know how much more simple it was to do what we do 20 years ago, but that doesn't mean that it was the right way. I mean, the customer expects this, and everything around them that isn't home building is technology based, and our kids are all technology based. So like we only can go in that direction, and we have to go in that direction, because if we don't, then we're not going to be building homes for people in the future. You know what I mean?
I think that's a great summary of our whole discussion here. I mean, going back over 20 years of how you've had to change, we've had to change. I mean, everybody always thinks of us as, oh, wow, you guys are the tech guys. I was literally sketching on a light box, the watercolor house, the paint for Melissa. And I do this, in the middle of the night, just so I can go and then scan this so I can send her a CD so that she can get it to her print shop to get it out by the ad in 2 weeks.
But it's all reinvention, John. We've all had to reinvent.
Yes, we have to continually innovate.
And it's just evolution of all of our jobs, no matter what we do.
We're innovating on the sales side, on the vendor supply side, but the consumers are expecting that on the buy side.
Yes.
And I tell you, really in the last 3 to 5 years, I've seen more changes from technology and maybe even the openness or adoption of technology by this industry than in the previous 10. And I think COVID did accelerate that. It says, hey, wait a minute, we can sell remotely. Hey, buyers will shop remotely. Yep. We can put pricing online and it doesn't scare everybody away. Actually, it's actually bringing people closer and closer to it. And at some point here, somebody will break that sound barrier of, and we have already, but more and more hitting that buy button there. And the buy
Michigan
button,
builders, John, I get a lot of leads from Michigan for
yes. And we're in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing it for build on your lot builders. They're going to do buy now online. And so I think that convenience is actually going to be a selling point on top of all the great craftsmanship and history and quality of the homes. That customer experience is actually, and this is where it comes back to marketing. I think marketing, buyers are going to make their decisions on whether they go further down that sales funnel by that initial marketing experience.
Right. No, I agree. And it's funny, I've thought about this recently, and sales is the bread and butter of what we do. Right. Like without sales, none of this happens. Yeah. And my job, and I've said this out loud and I firmly believe it, my job is, I exist solely to support my sales team. And
that's the right perspective for marketing. You're there to support sales.
That's what I do. But it's interesting how there's been sort of this paradigm shift over the years where, sales was sort of, in like I said, they still are the bread and butter, but the sales it was always the forefront, and then everything else was support, right? The website supported sales, and it's not that it doesn't support it now, but I would argue that our website is that, your website is that first storefront. I mean, it is, the website, yes. and in that it encompasses the interactive tool. So it's not, yes, I can't not call it support at this point, but it's so much more than support. Like it is our main, it's usually the first impression. It's our main storefront. It's our most important model, if you will. I mean, that's sort of where people decide whether or not they're going to go further, whether or not they're going to give our sales team the opportunity to talk to them, to work with them, to interact with them. So if we don't catch them right at the very beginning, so that website function has really changed over the years. I mean, but then again, like 20 years ago, most of our customers were, they were drive-bys. They saw us on signs. They stopped into our sales office first, sight unseen. They didn't know anything about us. And after talking to a salesperson, they might go home and look at the website and kind of get a little bit more information or get more comfortable with the idea of a purchase. And that's how it happened 20 years ago, where now, literally at this point, it's 99.8% of the people who walk through my door have absolutely been to the website. They know exactly what they want. They know how much they want to spend on options. They know which home site they like. Like that's all been done before they come and meet with us.
Well, they're starting obviously online now. It's online first, but the one part that I think marketing is coming from that traditional support role, which you still are supporting sales, is that you can do more on the website than just do that suggestive generic rendering representation, that generic watercolor kind of thing, to now they can actually personalize, they can design it. So they're actually moving in a marketing platform down the sales funnel on their own.
Yes. So you're absolutely right. And it's funny because I remember going all the way back when we first started talking about, the interactive tool, when you first introduced it to us. There was so much of it that I was excited about, but it was really more the marketing end of it, like the floor plans and the interactive options. Right. And when we got to the end, and it's kind of like, oh, look, and you can create a brochure, and now they have an account, and your sales team can then log into this account and see what they were looking at. And then that was nice. I mean, that was cool, but it's like, that's not what I loved about the tool, where now, I mean, I'm getting to the point where I'm actually, my goal is to eliminate paper marketing. Because it's really not necessary. I mean, they have everything made on the tool. They create their, brochure, they have it, they bring it in. And even now I have seen such an increase in the last year of people actually taking their brochure and emailing it to us. like that extra step of like making sure we got it by emailing it to us,
Right.
saying, hey, this is what I did, not, necessarily realizing that we have it too, but this is what I want, like, when can I meet with you, and what are the next steps? But that, like, I guess when we first started talking about this all those years ago, I wasn't that forward thinking yet. I just, like I said, I thought it was cool. And now I actually have this, there are a number of leads that come in where they have brought themselves all the way through the process, and they're like, cool, here's my stuff. Like, when can we meet?
Exactly. We have a lot of builders there that the brochure that the person has designed is now attached as an exhibit to their contract. So
Okay. Yeah.
the buyer is saying, this is what I want. This is
I
exhibit
mean, that's
C.
our buy now. It actually attaches to the
It
contract.
automatically
Because
attaches and it
you can do it,
automatically
that's
updates
part
your
of it.
lot statuses. So
But
we're trying to make
yeah.
it a full circle from marketing to sales, all digitally, and then immediately updates marketing. So you don't have to get your hands in there to update things.
Updating the lots, updating
updating the lots and,
statuses,
yeah.
all that.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I love about it too. When you think of it just from an efficiency standpoint, and then even going back to how it's changed, I mean, just so for how many years did we all do that? You literally stuffed brochures. We had sales assistants that you would hire just so you could have 150 pre-stuffed brochures, and you'd have the customer come in that wanted a ranch, and at that particular community you sold one ranch and 7 2-story homes. They'd walk away with 8 pieces of paper for the
cut sheets.
like, you know what I mean? Like,
They're
there was nothing
expensive. Yeah.
very much so. There was nothing personalized about it, about that experience. It was very, and don't get me wrong, as the salespeople, they would pull out the brochure and write on the ranch and go over with them, but then put it back in the packet, put it, on the top, put it back in the folder, and off they would go with it. And now it's just, I mean, it was wasteful, and it wasn't a personalized experience, and it just wasn't the same conversation, right? Focused around the marketing, where now, I mean, that conversation starts personal. I mean, it's personal the minute they start talking about their home, because they've already built their home.
Exactly. Well, that's a great summary. I think it's a great walk down memory lane back up to not even to now, but to the future. So I really appreciate your time. Any last words or?
No, I appreciate meeting with you guys. It was great to kind of do this. I love looking back and talking about how much it has changed. I mean, it kind of sneaks up on you. And John, I just have to say, it's funny, like your stories at the beginning were great. But looking back, I actually cannot remember how I even originally got your name or number, but I know
I can't imagine either, because back then we didn't even have the internet to even market, stuff. So
It's a God thing.
God was listening somehow. I don't know how you found this.
But it was funny too, because over all of these years, as your team has evolved and changed, and company name, like the products have changed, the company names have changed, and I have been able to see it. It's funny because I look back to all those years ago when you started out as simply like, quote unquote, my renderer. That's what I'd say. Let me get this to my renderer.
Right.
I just thought you were some guy in North Carolina who was doing renderings, and I just didn't realize like sort of that level of like ingenious technology that was in that head. I mean, I just, again, going back to, if I could have known then what I know now, I had no idea that you were going to go from being my renderer to all of these incredible tools that have so, moved forward our industry, and have really completely changed our relationship with our consumer. Like, I just think that the relationship with our consumer would be so less comfortable. The customer experience would be so different and just very disjointed if we didn't have some of these tools. So, kudos to you and your team for kind of, taking the time to understand the consumer and what they want and how they're evolving, and then continually adapting, because being able to continually adapt it's challenging, knowing that this is coming and having to work for today, but then still being able to accommodate where it's going to go in the future. It's tough to do that. But I'm grateful that you and your team have kind of mastered that art and keep kind of pushing us all. And you're pushing us all forward. So we're grateful for that.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. You didn't know me from anybody there. And I mean, I don't want to over exaggerate this, but if you didn't call that day, I don't know if I'd be here right now. I probably would have taken back my traditional corporate finance job, and I'd be sitting in some cubicle somewhere. And yeah, so really, I do appreciate it. I mean, you made my day and made my life. Well, thank you.
It's been a wonderful relationship. I think you guys are incredible. So thank you very much for having me for the time, and I enjoyed the walk down memory lane.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Melissa.
Thanks, guys.